This time we're going to talk about printing. Now, Microsoft Project isn't the easiest thing to print things out of because it's a bit finicky and you have to set up exactly what you want to show and how you want to show it. And a lot depends basically on how much of the program you're trying to show or any specific areas you want to highlight. Now, this is the way I normally display my programs for working on because it makes it easy to understand what's happening. You can easily see days of the week, so it's easy to see an overview of a period of time in the project. The problem with this is because generally any reasonable sized project may run for a year or even 2 or 3 years, to show a print of this project in full as the days of the week becomes very, very difficult unless you're using very large sheets of paper such as plotter on AO, etc. Now, and to show you what I mean, if I go into a view to look at how this program would look as a printed view, you can see here this is a 30-page view. Now, the way this is being shown is to put everything on one page because I'm a big believer that your program should have one page width and not multiple pages. If we go into the page setup, and the reason I'll show you this now is, as you can see it, I always have it set to one page wide. In this case, it's 30 pages tall in order to show the project in its entirety on a page width. But as you can see, as I say, it's very, very dense. If we were to change the view to 100% size, it will make a big difference into how it displays, but it will run it over a number of pages width. This is not an overly big program. This is running at around about 1200 lines. Now, if I go into a page view, you can see how now it's running across basically 6 page widths, and it's telling me 73 pages down. Now that obviously is mental, really. And if I were to focus in, although it shows it in as each page in actually good detail, you're printing a lot of pages of nothing. You can turn the pages off, and if I go into page setup, into the view, I have a thing here where it says print blank pages. If I turn that off and we go back into the view, you'll see that they'll actually become grayed out. And what this will actually do is it will prevent you from printing pages that have no information on them. So although it doesn't show very here, pages that have got no information are grayed out. So you then end up having to basically sift through everything. And again, you see here, this bit of information is here, but because it's a bit like a mosaic tile, you've got no information as to what these tasks are, etc., start and finish dates. Now again, if I go into page setup, you can control that by basically telling it to print the first four columns on every page. But the whole thing just becomes a complete nightmare. Hence why I would generally try and get all information onto one page wide by however many pages long. Because although this becomes a lot denser, this is set as an A3 at the moment. It would be a lot more readable if it was at an AO or an A1 plot. But as you see, it becomes very dense. So how do you get over that? If you want to show the whole program page by page for the whole period of the course of the contract, then you need to get out of the days of the week and go into a monthly view. So I have a separate view of the program. This is in a daily. If I just change over now to a monthly view, and it basically condenses it down into a monthly view. If we look now at printing in a monthly view, and this again will be set up to one page wide, you can see immediately it becomes far more readable. And as you scroll down through the program, and I'll go right down through to the end of the program. So although the information, the Gantt bars are a lot smaller, that's still readable and it's still identifiable in this view as to what's what. The one thing you will notice here at the moment, if I go in, at the moment I've got no information on these Gantt bars. Again, you turn on and off information as you need it to fulfill a particular requirement. What I generally do with a full program is I would have, obviously all of the tasks are down here on the left. I wouldn't normally show the task names on the Gantt bars. I would just basically have an ID number, and more often than not I'll actually show the resource that's required rather than the name of the task. So this is controlled by basically turning on and off the information in the Gantt chart itself. So if I just double click on this now, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So general tasks, on the left I just want to show the ID number, which is the line number for the task, and on the right I want to show the resource, which would be the resource names. Now you can see straight away then it says line number 150, which refers it back over to the task list on the side, and it gives you the resource that's actually carrying out the job. Now if I scroll down a bit, you see the red Gantt bars are the critical tasks, and they're not at the moment showing anything. That's because when you go into this, I've set it for the task. I also need to set it for critical tasks. So I need to find a critical task, and same thing. ID, and to the right, resource name. Now you'll notice also here with the milestones, I've got a date for the milestone, but at the moment I've got no information. And once again, it's in here, and I'll set the. Now this is a place where I will generally put the name of the task in, just as for clarity against what the milestone is for. Hence, it would be name, and then that then fills in the information. So when you're looking at it in a print, and if I just go back into a print view, I scroll down, we find a few. You can see here now I've got the explanation of a milestone, and I've got all of the resources mapped in. So when I'm doing an update of a program or printing a program out, if it's for a PCG, a program project control group meeting, which is the general monthly meeting with the client, where you update on progress, etc. As part of that, you hand over a copy of the program to show where all of your progress is up to, and you give a report on what's happening on site, what's running late, etc., etc. As part of the process, I will normally give a copy of the critical path for the program and a full copy of the program in PDF. So hence I'll be printing out different things. So this is how I control the information I'm actually giving. Now with critical path, if I just filter it now for critical tasks. So now we've got critical path, and if I go into the file view, into the print view, now you can see here it's saying it's printing on 7. That's because it's picking up the same information to set up the print as for the full program. And the way I would normally set up the number of pages is on an A3 sheet, 50 to 60 lines can be read quite comfortably. So if a program is, say, 1200 lines long, then basically 1200 divided by 50 is 20 pages, 40 pages. 600 lines, 60 lines is 10 pages, so 20 pages would be a general comfortable read. But again, as I'm printing out, I'll look at the print and see how readable it looks before I actually go to set it to print. But with the critical path, obviously critical path is much, much shorter, and I will generally try and get critical path into a one-pager or 2 or 3 max, depending on how much information I've got to get over and how big the program is. But if we start with a view as a one-to-one page, you can see here now I've got everything in, but this looks to be quite a small read on an A3. So we'd look at backing it back to, say, 2 pages. And 2 pages, as you can see, is far more readable. So as you can see there, over two pages, it looks readable. So this would be a good option. But I'd also have a look at what happens if I, say, change it to a portrait view, because I can get more lines on a portrait view. And that may well do the job. It's generally always as well if I can to get it into one page. And you can see with that actually looks pretty readable as on an A3 in a portrait view. So this would probably be the way I would go with this print for this option. Now, if I just go back into setting up for a full print in landscape, and as I say, and this is about 1200 lines, so if I go to 20 pages and see how it looks as 20 pages for a full print, this is still filtered for critical. So remove the filter and go back to full program and then have a look. So as you can see, this actually sits quite tight. So that's looking at about 70 lines to a page. So if we just increase until you get a view that you're happy with. And say 30 pages and have a look how it looks at 30 pages. And that looks a lot better, a lot more readable. So as I say, you can see how you have to zoom in and zoom out and change the views, etc., to get something until you're happy with it. Now, let's say we were looking at printing a portion of the program. If I had a new column now, which is for my work streams, and let's say we're going to just look at the piling works. So I can filter the program down now just to show piling. And if I go into a print preview here, and then we'll put it on one page. So this is all of the piling works on one page. Now, as you can see here now, the piling works actually finishes here, but I've got the work going right on to basically to the end of the job. We can zoom in, and we don't need this. So we just want to look at this area. The way you do that is to look at specific dates and set a specific date. So where this is showing now, the piling work is basically finished by May. If we say run it back down to end of May, sorry, next year, end of May. Oh, cut it a little bit too tight. Back it up by a couple of months. So this would be a good printout. Given how short this period is, I would probably put this back into a view based on weeks and have a look how that looks, but that's perfectly acceptable. If I jump across to my daily view and filter for the same thing, let's just insert a work stream, insert column, and then we'll filter this in the same way for the piling works. Piling procurement, and then close this up and have a look at this as a print. file. If I just tighten this up a little bit by changing the dates that it will print to, let's go to say the end of May, and you can see I've still got 2 weeks at the end there. So because I'm now working in days, I can literally refine it down to the weeks I'm showing, and this would probably be the way I would look. This is actually showing us 2 pages at the moment. Let's have a look and see how it looks as one. And just lengthen the dates out. Again, just adjusting what I can see on screen until usually I would look to make sure that where I've got this task name here, it's obviously so that you can read all of it on the page, it's pushing forward of a few weeks. And I check to make sure that I'm clear at this end. With this, I can tighten it up a bit more by basically just going back into the program and changing around the way that the information just on this one, on this milestone works. I'll change it from the default, which is for the text to be, the name to be on the left and the task finish to be on the right. If I put finish in there and name on the right, it will change it around the opposite way around. And like when I now go back into my print, you can see I can now tighten this up a little bit. So say the 19th, back it back a little bit to the 17th. So now when I look, I'm just tightening up and increasing the size of, or the focus of the print. And between the two, it's a case of personal choice, but again, I would look probably at doing this one showing the days of the weeks in this instance. So you can see you have to tailor your view, A, to the audience that's going to be receiving it and how it looks. The idea is to try and simplify and focus in as much as you can to make things easy to see overall and present a decent illustration. Generally, I try and make things as clear as possible so that there are no questions that need to be asked, because I may be trying to zoom in on an argument for something, and you basically have to take the view almost of feeding information as if you were feeding it to a 4-year-old, spoon by spoon. And anything that, when you're trying to make a point, anything that raises a question takes you off the point and it makes you lose control of what it is you're trying to argue. Hence, you tailor your view to suit. Now, if I jump sort of laterally across this, if we look at what you would normally be shown when you set up, this is just another Gantt view. And if I go into this, I don't think there's been any of the presets that I set up normally to show what's going to be printed, and this would be probably the default view you would get when you are working with a new program. Okay, yeah, so this is the kind of default view you get of a print when you haven't actually preset anything up. It will generally always have this legend area on it on every page. At the moment, you can see this is set to A4. So I just change this over to A3 at least to give it a bit more of a view. And again, at the moment, it's showing 219 pages. This will be because it's running on a percentage base. But you see, this legend always takes up quite a bit of space at the bottom. And a lot of this information is completely superfluous to what will be on your program. And if it's not actually adding any useful information or is detracting from it, then you're actually better off without it. So I would always turn it off. And the way you turn it off is in the legend tab. You can have it on every page. You can have a legend page. So if you feel you must have a legend, you can print it as a separate page, which will then attach to the back end of the program. But I generally I don't have it at all. Now I'll also go back into the page settings, and this is set to 100%, which will mean it will be spreading over half a dozen pages widths, etc. Always go back to how you want it, 1 page wide by however many pages tall, and we've already seen that 30 works okay, and it will reset it, and already that is looking better. Yeah. Now you notice also the link lines are all in here. I wouldn't normally have link lines because, as you can see from this, they're not actually adding anything to the understanding, and all they're doing is creating a massive spaghetti on the program. I'm just trying to figure out why it's not showing all of the program here. Oh, because we're printed specific dates. So now we've got it into the one page one. So you can see this adds literally nothing at all to your understanding at all. So we turn it off by going to the Format tab, into Layout, and turning it off. And back into a print view, and you'll see the difference on this straight away. As you can see now, the program is a lot cleaner and a lot easier to understand. So once again, as I say, it all comes down to what it is you're trying to show and how you have everything set up. Basically, it's about gaining as much clarity as you can. Just in terms of the link lines, the only times I would generally show a link line would be as though I'm showing a critical path and I want to show the relationships between the critical path. So if I turn this on, this one actually cascades down quite neatly and cleanly, job by job, in terms of run stream through. I'll just turn off the work stream so that it's showing the critical path for the whole of the project. But even then you'll see that the critical path isn't jumping around much. It runs pretty cleanly through from start to finish of the program as it's laid out. Sometimes it will be jumping between different areas. If you've set up the program to show different zones, it very often will be going down here and then up here and across, and the link lines show the relationships to actually how the critical path runs between different areas and zones. Hence, I will show a critical path that shows the link line, so that if this section was, say, up here, it would show the link line running up here and show how the chain of work goes together. Now, I know I've meandered through this a little bit and it's sort of gone here, there and everywhere, but the idea I wanted to show was how you change the views between your print settings and the zoom in and zoom out and information you're showing in order to maximize the information you're giving. Again, you can see here, critical path is running down through here, and I would just basically back this right back to zoom in to the information I want to show. I've gone a little bit too far. And in fact, I've just gone way too far. But you get the idea how you pull the information into the view and you zoom in and narrow in the, almost if you like, you draw curtains across parts of the program to get it to what you want to show. Now, as I say, I know I've meandered through this, but I hope that actually just gives you an understanding of how you approach the printing process. If you've got any questions, you can always come back to me on email, etc. Okay, end of story.